traditionally, before, we were looking at the telecom operators as the main players in the industry, right? They were deploying cables, they were investing in the cables, they were operating the cables. Now the new players coming into markets are first the hyperscalers. So the hyperscalers, with their demand for data, their deployments of data centers, now they want the connectivity portion as well. So we are seeing them more and more active into the submarine industry, being direct investors in the cables, or even leading on cables. Then we see the government side. So the governments now are more supportive of attracting these hyperscalers, and also themselves more involved into the regulation and supporting the industry overall, either the hyperscalers in terms of attracting them to come into the country, or the local telecom operators in terms of supporting them to attract these international players. In some countries, not in every country, is these mega developments, like the mega cities in Saudi Arabia, where we are seeing them having their own digital agenda. So they want to have the connectivity, which is different to the rest of the country, and therefore potentially they are getting into having the backhaul organized by themselves. So they might be landing submarine cables, or they might be having big terrestrial connectivity within that mega city or outside. The other interesting angle is the development banks. So the development banks traditionally were not investing in the terrestrial and the subsea industry. We are seeing more of the likes of the World Bank and other development banks in Africa and also Latin America being interested in subsea type of infrastructure as an investor strategically, and also supporting the governments which are launching those cables. So again, it's a combination of the hyperscalers, the governments with their mega projects, and also the development banks. And one other interesting example I would like to mention is where some countries, from a procurement perspective, for government type of services, where they were buying annually leases because of their budget cycles. Now the development banks are supporting investments where they could buy a long-term capacity, a 15-year RU, which then guarantees them a better price per megabit capacity, and therefore reducing the country's sort of price of connectivity. So again, all these are initiatives which we haven't seen in the past, but now they're coming into light. Two types of technologies which are impacting the industry. One is the technologies behind the submarine cables, and the other one is the technologies which are surrounding the cables itself, which are providing greater importance for the deployment of the new cables. So when we are talking about the first ones, new technologies in terms of how the cables are manufactured, providing more capacity. They are making cables which are more protected, and also the repeaters which are on the cables now, they're more sophisticated. So where in the past we had a static distribution of capacity between countries, the branching units and so on, now you could dynamically adjust that. So there are a lot of advances into the cables. I mean, as you know, we are trying now to deploy cables between Chile and Antarctica and so on in a lot of more challenging environments, which technically wasn't feasible before. Now, on the other side, if we are talking about what surrounds the cables, it's obviously the data centers, especially the AI data centers, the internet exchanges. So wherever you've got a lot of cables landing, automatically you're creating a way of a hub for other developments to happen. So we are seeing both sort of new centers appearing around the globe and a lot more cables coming into play. If you go around the countries around the world, everybody has a strategy to be a hub. But obviously, that's not feasible. Not every country could be a hub. So some will be bigger, some will be smaller. But the two things which are quite important is, one is the regulatory regime and political stability, and how easy it is to do business within that country. So those countries, like Singapore, they attract a lot of the cables, they attract a lot of international investors, and they are easy frameworks where business could be done. So the regulatory constraints are unfortunately sort of stifling certain countries which have a lot of potential to become hubs, right? On the other hand, you have some hubs which are getting oversaturated. And we are looking at alternative hubs, alternative geographic locations to mitigate some of the risks within the industry. So we all know about the Red Sea issues with Egypt and also Yemen being now a choke points for the traffic. So we are looking at other routes and other hubs around those, maybe towards the Gulf or towards Africa, to become alternative hubs. So, I think we'll be looking at both strengthening, the connectivity within the existing hubs and also creating new hubs to create more resilient network, which I think it's needed for the new developments. For the ecosystem question, I think, as I mentioned before, wherever there are a lot of cables landing, that becomes a hub by definition, right? So, and then you're looking at data centers being generated there, internet exchanges, and also the terrestrial connectivity coming to that place. So a lot of these ecosystems now have certain components. When you have them together, you become a hub, effectively. So collaboration between the players is also necessary. So those locations needs to be carrier neutral if possible, with pricing which is at a level where doesn't add a burden if you're having as a hub destination, and so on. So a lot of collaboration needs to happen, I think, in the future between the players within those hubs, and then collaboration between the ones deploying and maintaining the cable. I mean, again, I'll go back to the recent incident in the Red Sea of the 4 cables being cut. I think all those 4 cables potentially have different maintenance procedures. However, if they work together, they don't have to get 4 different permits to repair the cable. They don't have to send 4 different ships to repair it. So some collaboration on operations and maintenance will become critical, and also collaboration in how they're operating these cables end to end. So a lot of synergies could be done within the industry. Obviously, there is a collaboration traditionally from the consortium cables until now, but I think more could be done because now these new players are private and they're entering the industry, as I mentioned. So they will have to have bigger play, not just investing into the cables, but also making sure there's some consolidation on the operation side as well.